Hello, I'm Tim Wall, Senior Reporter for Pet Food Industry. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro, Next Gen Pet Food, Nutrition, Preservation, and Innovation Insights. Ask the Pet Food Pro allows professionals to pose questions directly to industry experts. Ask the Pet Food Pro is brought to you by Pet Food Forum and pet food industry's journalists and editors. Drawing on our combined decades of experience covering the dog, cat, and other pet food markets, you can find our reporting and analysis at petfoodindustry.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our daily newsletter and monthly magazine. Today's discussion focuses on the future of pet food nutrition and preservation. Pet food ingredient producer Carrie sponsors this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro. Our expert guests are Saurabh Kumar, Carrie's Vice President of Business Development, and John Menton, Senior Director of Business Development at Carrie. Welcome, Saurabh and John, and thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. Pleasure to be here.
So before we start the discussion, I have a few little announcements. Audience members, you've all been muted to ensure that everyone can hear and focus on the discussion. I've included many of the questions you all sent in beforehand into our script, but if you have a question during the discussion, please submit those or any other comments in the chat box. Please note that this is being recorded, so you can access the recording starting in about a week at petfoodforumevents.com. Click on Ask the Pet Food Pro at the top. So, to get started, let's hear what each of you thinks will be the most promising development in pet food nutrition and preservation within the next 5 years.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. I think what we're seeing in the pet food industry really is a humanization of pet. And I think we're seeing a lot of pet parents, as we call them, are looking to have the same health benefits in the food, treats, supplements to give the pet that they give themselves. So really bringing a proactivity to health that humans are bringing to their own lives, particularly post-COVID. That's being mirrored across pet. Much more interested in functional ingredients, in the science behind these ingredients, and really how it will help their pets live a longer life. Other areas we are seeing of interest is sustainability. Sustainability is coming into play, and definitely in terms you see it with some of the protein sources that are being looked at, like insect cell protein. We're seeing a lot of at conferences. And another area I hope to see and we start seeing is a bit more focus on the cats, in terms of there's not a lot of science behind a lot of the diet of the health and wellness ingredients for cats. I think they've been a bit neglected over the years, and I think over the next 4 to 5 years, we start seeing industry potentially catch up there for more ingredients for feline health.
Yeah, I think definitely building on John's remark, in preservation, it is very exciting times right now. Humanization is driving those changes in food protection and preservation in pet. We are seeing tremendous changes. Innovation is leading. They are looking for more trends like in human areas. Freshness is a concept which is rooted very heavily in all the innovation trends of our customers. Carrie is really helping in this area by being a leader in freshness, providing solutions for food safety, shelf life, antioxidant, much more longer shelf life and benign processes like HPP replacement. But all these innovation trends comes with a very basic challenge of food safety and risk assessment and risk mitigations. That's where Carrie is investing very heavily in our predictive modeling, in our accelerated shelf life protocols, and our deep science and deep investments in application studies that forms the basis for acceleration. One of the biggest challenge that we are seeing for our customers and the industry is the heavy R&D and innovation spend that is associated with all the reformulations, launches, and innovations. And that is kind of a barrier for new growth. Carrie is providing a very unique value over here as we have invested millions of dollars in food protection area over the last 4 years. And due to those strategic and differentiated investments in innovation and science, now we are able to reduce the development time and R&D spend, which generally would have taken 6 to 18 months of development time. We are able to do in 1 to 4 months with a fraction of those resources, and this is unlocking a tremendous power of innovation and development for our customers on a global level. At the same time, we are seeing a lot of new emerging risks that are being associated recently, being avian influenza, salmonella molds, and others. And we have, in our very late stage innovation funnel, we have now disruptive innovation solutions for those challenges as well. Refrigerated pet food area is another one which is seeing very big innovation. That's also our focus. Overall, like in conjunction with John's remark, Kerry is investing, continues to invest tens of millions of dollars in this space in pet food to make sure that we are a strategic value provider to the industry and making sure we are meeting the needs of our consumer in a scientific manner.
Gotcha. So following up on that, and speaking of meeting the needs of your consumers, of your, the small and medium-sized pet side companies out there in particular, we got a question from the audience before the show about how some of those emerging technologies can help small to mid-sized companies stay relevant. What are each of your opinions on that?
Yeah, I would say from the perspective of health and wellness, small and medium-sized companies can be much more nimble and quicker to bring new innovations to market, particularly any new ingredients for functional health. I think they're able to differentiate themselves based on just on a brand. So you could see a small, medium-sized company just focusing, for example, on a specific protein and then adding, in terms of, as I said, insect earlier, but then adding different functional ingredients. So they're able to really to differentiate themselves from the bigger players. The bigger players take longer, I think, to launch new niche products and take longer to rebrand and move. So I think the area is open and much more open for them from that perspective, so they can be nimbler. And I think, with the age now is social media and influencers, there's great opportunities for small, medium companies. You do see it to really get picked up by some of these influencers and really push them for a specific reason, like the environment, which can be closer to them influencers' heart. I think there's huge opportunity for small, medium companies to come out with leading edge technologies or differentiation and really grow their business quickly.
Absolutely. I think it's a very critical remark and fully on point by John. The industry, the consumers are looking for innovation, and the degree of innovation launches varies between small, medium, and large players. And of course, Kerry has invested in food protection area exactly for this reason. New technologies, new ingredients, such as when you're launching new formats, refrigerated or even, frozen shipments, you're launching new channels, etc., or new formulations, you have to do freshness studies, stability studies, etc. Let's talk about a disrupting like cable segment. A newer product development would take anywhere between 6 to 18 or even 24 months or 30 months in a traditional manner. And now to have such kind of investments is generally prohibitive to meet the needs, like John is saying, be agile, be nimble, and launch fast, learn faster. Due to our predictive models, application studies, published scientific literature, and our collaboration with academia, based on Kerry generates around 10,000 microbial curves, kinetic curves every week now due to our investments in huge ecosystem. We have science-backed solutions on different areas. For example, like launching a new product, doing a risk assessment, Salmonella, E. coli, O157, molds, Listeria monocytogenes, all those are extremely expensive and continues to become expensive every day. How do we give that value, and how do we enable small and medium-sized companies to do those studies in a differentiated manner, in a fraction of resources, both in time and money? That's where the power of Kerry is at play in a scientific manner over here. Another one is this area of antioxidant freshness. Kerry has now invested significantly in our systems approach, where now we are able to replace rosemary and traditional antioxidants which were not providing the needed performance. And with our natural flavor systems, AFCO compliant solutions, we are able to disrupt innovation and development time in 1 to 4 months. We have predictive antioxidant models, etc. So these kind of scientific studies, everything has to be based in science. It has to be science driven, data driven, and only with that we can accelerate. And now we have done a critical mass of investments that enables small and medium sized customers to launch their products in a very safe manner and meet varying degree of channel needs, customer needs, etc. And also experiment with new ingredients like vegetables, meat protein, different proteins, etc., different formats, fresh. These traditionally were simply due to food safety, shelf life, oxidation, freshness concept were simply not possible. But now we are seeing, working with the industry, amazing launches at an unprecedented level.
Gotcha. It sounds like using some of those science-based innovations, small and medium-sized companies can really kind of leverage themselves up and use that nimbleness to get ahead. So going into that a little bit more, the subject of today's show is pretty broad. So let's consider a couple of those different topics related to the future of pet food, nutrition, and preservation in detail. So first, let's explore the future of pet food preservation. One major trend in pet food during the past decade or so has been increasing customer scrutiny of pet food ingredients. People don't want to have to dig out their old chemistry textbook to understand the ingredient deck. But at the same time, no one wants rancid pet food. So how are natural preservation systems evolving to meet the dual demands of having a clean label while extending the shelf life of pet food?
No, this is a very, very critical area as well, where we have to balance science and consumer trends as well as regulatory compliance. Pet food is highly regulated by FDA, CVM through AFCO regulations as such. So you cannot launch any ingredient, which does not have the full scrutiny and full safety assessments as such. At the same time, this requires a systematic strategic investments in natural and clean label area where you are developing solutions based on fundamental technologies which meets all the requirements of AFCO, our customers and consumers alike. At the same time, we have to make sure that those ingredients are fully effective to minimize the risk and control all the food safety issues that could be present in that portfolio. So Kerry has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in this area of clean label and natural preservation throughout our food applications as well as pet applications. We are uniquely positioned to have that scientific knowledge, regulatory compliance knowledge on both angles, food grade. So we have a Everwild brand for pet food, which is food grade, natural and clean label solutions that are available for pet food industry to meet these clean label and natural trend needs. These solutions undergo rigorous quality checks, compliance checks, production checks, and make sure that ingredient, for example, we have vinegar in our portfolio, carries the largest fermentation company, and we make vinegar fermentation metabolites, which are very clean label and natural for the applications. And they are the strongest and the best ingredient available on a global level. But this requires, like I said, like complete investments in the full ecosystem, in your R&D, in your operations, in your manufacturing, supply chains, regulatory discipline. We have more than 150 regulatory scientists globally helping us to make sure everything is in compliance. So that unique ecosystem that is backed by an 8 billion euro company, that gives the scientific confidence to the industry that all the ingredients that we are launching are fully vetted and meeting the needs of the industry.
Gotcha. So you had mentioned vinegar and fermentation. So what does recent research suggest about the synergistic use of antioxidants, acidifiers, and fermentation products for controlling spoilage?
Yes, this is a very important area. We call it systems strategy. And when we combine different ingredients together. We don't call it system, it is a blend. The definition of a system for us is finding a novel or a unique property that is unlocked by combining two ingredients without using any solvents, etc., by doing a technology transformation that unlocks some property which was not possible by using those single ingredients individually. So we have patented solutions such as Everwild 20L, which is a combination of a firm and vinegar technology. That combination only provides a unique performance against Clostridium species, against resistant lactic acid bacteria control, against Listeria monocytogenes. And this transformation happens because we have a proprietary technology which allows us to develop this synergistic systems together. And recently, a lot of industry was looking for a scientific predictive models like we have for microbiology models. They asked us to develop antioxidant models because this was unmet need, and to change an antioxidant system in a 6 to 12 month product requires 12 to 24-month research, which was always resource prohibitive, time prohibitive, and the business does never has that long of a gestation time. So Kerry invested $30+ million in this area, and we have now developed a predictive antioxidant model, systems, proprietary systems model with our preservation and antioxidant, where we are able to now do the same research which would have taken 6 to 24 months in 1 to 3 months, and then replace rosemary or tocopherols, which are great antioxidant system, but they are not meeting the desired needs, performance standards. And we have now recently launched like very unique systems which are 10 times more effective and meeting the sensory regulatory labeling requirements of our customers. So ultimately, this is a very resource intensive business, food protection. And we are fortunate within Kerry that it is a strategic area along with health and wellness, where our leadership is investing very significantly. We are innovation driven company. We have more than 1,200 scientists globally. And in food protection area, we have dedicated 50+ scientists, world-class researchers, PhDs, postdocs, subject matter experts, ex-professors working with us to make sure that the resource constraint on the industry is taken off and we can unleash the power of innovation, and we can lower the burden of resources. Like a project which needs, for example, 300K investments, we carry is 300K to 1 million or $2 million investments. We are able to decrease that to 5 to 10 times. So imagine a $2 million project, we are able to do it for 200K and in a fraction of time. That's a unique value that we are becoming a partner of choice in this area that no one else can provide. And ultimate advantage, the power of Kerry is we are end-to-end integrated. We have 140 manufacturing plants ourselves globally. We have full human side dominance in food protection. So when we are working for pet food area, which is fully integrated in the whole supply chain of human meat area as well, we are able to give end-to-end solutions to our customers and save a lot of cost in the process and provide a very significant solution which was simply unheard of or not available. Like 12 months back, it was not possible to do a project where we are able to increase moisture by 4 to 6% and still give shelf life increase, full food safety, full freshness, and full enhanced risk assessment control, which adds a significant value to the product lines for our customers. And as we all know, in the pet food area, if we are able to increase the moisture, the palatability is very positively affected. So we are unleashing an area of innovation, like John was mentioning earlier, which was simply restricted due to the past lack of scientific investments. Those areas were considered no development areas. But now that's what we are really enhancing our zone of developments for our customers.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit more about those predictive modeling tools. Could you tell me a little bit more about maybe the nuts and bolts of exactly how those predictive modeling tools are being used to estimate oxidative stability and estimate the microbial risk across pet food formats, dry, wet, whatever?
100%. So we have predictive microbiology models for mold species, for Listeria control model, for shelf life species. In that, we have invested very heavily. We have more than 200,000 or 300,000 now microbial kinetic curves that took us many years of internal work as well as collaborations with universities, regulatory bodies like USDA, international collaborators. Based on that generation of data, etc., now we have predictive models. So if our customer says to us, we have a product which is like 3 months shelf life, I need 4 months. Based on their product characteristics, pH, water activity, moisture, product ingredients, and their targeted strains, we are able to work on our models. And that way, instead of doing 10, 20, 30 treatments and doing the full 4 months and realizing, oh, nothing worked or it was too expensive, we are able to shortlist the design of experiment into the top 1 to 3 treatments that would have greater than 90% of the chance of success right first time. So we reduced 10 to 20 or 30 treatments with a chance of success of 10 to 20% and a spend of, yeah, let's assume 50 to 300K. We are able to do that within 10 to 15K with 1 to 3 treatments and right first time. That's the power of microbiology models. It could also be that, oh, I have a pH of 5.5, but now my pH has gone to 6.6. My salt has gone down. My water activity. Reformulation is the biggest challenge for the industry right now. And reformulation without scientific data, application data, predictive models is a very expensive and a resource intensive way of development. And with Kerry's partnership, we are able to reduce that. Now going to antioxidant predictive models, we generate the data in specific customer applications. So let's say you have a product which has a shelf life of 9 months. Now you want to change your antioxidant systems and you do not know whether your primary, secondary, tertiary metabolites, what is causing the oxidation? Do you even need an antioxidant? Do you even need are you using the right level? Are you getting the performance? We are able to do that research due to our investments of this $30+ million globally. And that way, in 30 to 45 days, we are able to outline primary, secondary, tertiary metabolites in customer specific applications. So it is not any generalization. It is exactly in your own product, and it is science driven, data driven. So you know what is your existing system doing? Is it enough or not? Are you using too much, too less? And is it working? I'm just going to take an example of rosemary, right? I mean, what I have seen based on 50+ projects, yeah, the requirements were not met. And what is the new system that you can implement directly to meet those needs from your primary, secondary, and tertiary metabolites? And imagine your 9 month shelf life product reformulation would have taken, in best scenario, 13 to 24 months. We will be able to do that within 45 days to 60 days. That disruption, this particular disruption, is a breakthrough in the industry, and we are really collaborating. And every day, our collaborations is growing in the industry where we are giving this unique value. But again, these things took time, and fortunately, Kerry invested tens of millions of dollars in science and data. So nothing works without science, nothing works without data, and nothing is easier. Today we are able to do things in 45 days because for last 3 years, 24/7 non-stop scientific data was being generated in Kerry's ecosystem global labs. We have 160 like global labs. Every data around the globe in all the continents, we are trying to generate the data, collecting into our fundamental, basic, centralized data architectures, and then working with our data sciences team using AI predictive models, we are able to generate. So this whole unique ecosystem where you go from generating 10,000 curves, which actually means more or less 500,000 data points, to be able to analyze that in real time using cloud computing and AI, that ecosystem is the power of Carry Food Protection.
Gotcha. So some people might be a little skeptical of the ability of a computer simulation to truly model real world conditions. What would you say to them? Can accelerated shelf life testing, these predictive models, truly simulate real world conditions? And then how are those models validated?
Well, this is an extremely important point. Like validation data set has to be different than the generation ones. That's why it took us 3 years to have the intensity and the depth of data that is needed for predictions as well. And we have application studies as well. So we do things in parallel. We don't only do simulations, we have real life studies going on. And today, across the spectrum, we have done more than 500 projects. And our success, I mean, we have not seen a single failure, but we still say our success would be greater than 85%. But the amount of sheer data that we are generating along application data, that is the power. But it is 100, you're 100% right, Tim. Like without that power of data, application studies, etc., just to rely on simulation is not the best way. But Carry has a unique thing where we have application lab, we make real life product, real life inoculations, and our application data is thousands and thousands of studies. It's not one or two. And every time we are doing these simulations based on 300,000 plus curves, our confidence is increasing, our experience is increasing. So it's not just computer and data, it is also about our R&D teams and business teams' knowledge and insights. So this whole ecosystem together provides a success. Nothing in isolation is a solution. So great question.
Gotcha. Sounds like a lot of work to validate all those systems. So, well, while we're on the topic of pet food preservation, let's dig a little deeper into one aspect of it, natural antioxidants. Also plays into the whole clean label. What's driving the demand for natural antioxidants in pet food, and how does it influence sourcing and formulation strategies?
The unmet need throughout the value chain in pet food is driving it. Today, the antioxidant requirements for primary, secondary, and tertiary metabolites is not being met. Historically, there is only rosemary and tocopherols that are available. They either run into sensory limitations, performance limitations as such. So the industry is looking for a solution to meet those needs, which has not been met. And like I earlier said, the burden to reformulate is extremely high. And like John mentioned, humanization, new formulations, new trials, new trends, those required freshness concepts. And just to use rosemary or use this ingredient 1%, yeah, that doesn't work. It's not cutting anymore. It's a very expensive experiential learning. So that's where the power of predictive models come through. And the power of Carry is we are the largest flavor house as well. This is not known like every in the whole pet food industry, like on the human side, food side, we are the largest extract company. So we have thousands of extracts knowledge. So working with our colleagues, we were able to scan and generate data on thousands of proprietary unique systems, extracts, natural ones, and then generate our predictive models, etc., that we deploy for projects. And using those, we have now developed very unique natural flavor systems, extracts, etc., all based on plant extracts, which are very uniquely superior to traditional rosemary and tocopherols, as well as reformulation, like you said, sourcing strategy, supply chain disruptions, etc. We have much more tools available, and these are all part of total freshness preservation concept. Nothing is in isolation because preservation, antioxidant, everything totally determines the freshness. And Carry has unique experience and now knowledge and scientific data to give the recommendations for those development. So that's the power of Kerry. As a normal, like a pet food supplier, there would not be an intensity and depth and investments that are needed for this disruption. We are simply fortunate in our business to be part of the total Kerry power to be able to deploy those kind of multi-million tens of, or in some cases, hundreds of millions of dollars of resources and knowledge and expertise, which sometimes, yeah, it's simply not available.
With all those advances that you've just discussed in natural antioxidants, it ultimately, no matter how fresh the food is, it still comes down to whether the pet is going to actually eat it. And,
Yes.
palatability is super important. So how do those natural antioxidant systems that have been developed recently contribute to extending shelf life without compromising product flavor or aroma?
The overall freshness concept is sacrosanct. Every solution, whatever we do, needs to have independent palatability studies done. All our solutions are backed by pet palatability independent studies to make sure our science, our applications, etc., has no negative influence, has positive influence on palatability. Only then there's a commercial need. If there's a negative impact on palatability, no matter how great the innovation is, it will not go to the customer or it will not see the light of the day, because that is extremely sacrosanct criterion, Tim, like you mentioned.
So for pet food companies, if they've been sold on the idea of some of these new antioxidants and developments that you've been talking about, you also still have to consider regulatory and formulation challenges. So what are some of those regulatory and formulation issues that can arise when switching from a synthetic to a natural antioxidant system, considering the global pet food market?
Yes, it is a very critical one in food protection area, whether we are changing antimicrobial systems or synthetic antioxidants to natural area. We have to make sure overall product stability, freshness, palatability is not negatively affected. The basic fundamentals of food safety, antioxidant performance, shelf life, of course, are basic pillars that needs to be there. Holistic knowledge of this area is extremely critical. We have dedicated pet food R&D team leading in Kerry, which is again part of the wider one. So all our search is actually validated in real pet food products, and we have expertise to guide on reformulation, ingredient changes, drying changes. If you are using freeze drying, vacuum drying, whatever, like oven drying, etc., any formulation change has a relation to those processes as well. And like earlier indicated, we have 140 manufacturing plants. So the unique thing about Kerry is our R&D teams are directly connected to operations, which means we do not generate products in lab. We have to scale and commercialize it. So that experience of commercialization we take to our customers as well. So when we give a recommendation, it is product, process, packaging optimized end to end. It is not like use this ingredient, oh shit, it did not work in the plant. That does not happen. We have even expertise to redesign not only the ingredient but also the processes as well, because Kerry has very unique process technology knowledge as well on a global level. And the regulatory is extremely important. Every country has different regulatory compliance. In a global supply chain, you need that. That's why our Kerry Pet has a dedicated regulatory team, which is backed by these 150 even more wider global regulatory colleagues in each country that we have. So that's the power of Kerry that we have, is end-to-end full assessment on your product compliance, regulatory and everything. So there are no surprises or risks that are introduced through innovation. We de-risk every aspect of the business, and science is important, regulatory, but also operations, scale up, cost. All those elements in a holistic manner are assessed before we recommend and launch anything for our customers.
Gotcha. So speaking of customers, we had a question come in from an audience member before the show asking about if the product that they're planning that's going to be marketed as a single ingredient pet food or treat if it contains a natural antioxidant used in trace amounts, can that still be considered a single ingredient product?
I'm not a regulatory expert, so I'll have to come back on that one. My knowledge indicates that there is potential, yes, on that one, but I'll have to completely check the regulations on that one, Tim. We can come back on that.
Gotcha. And so on that regulations topic, there's another question that came in from the audience beforehand asking about some of those predictive modeling systems that you use. Are those recognized by regulatory bodies around the world? Is there a standard that they've set for some of those studies? First of all,
Yes. So, for example, food safety models, like there is no like a standard, etc., but there is a collaboration. So we have collaborated with University of Athens, Food Science Department head, Dr. Subaya. We published that in independent journals, Israel, Food Microbiology Journal, and others. We share the source code, the data, etc., with our customers. Ultimately, the value of those models, and we have a collaboration with USDA and international collaborators as well. Our intent is not to say this is the best model. Our intent is to use that to make sure our design of experiment is as sharp as possible, and the chance to be right first time in our challenge study is greater than 90%. We are not replacing challenge studies. We are not saying do not do those. What we are saying is instead of doing 10, 20, 30, 40 treatments and not knowing whether you will succeed or not, we can help design 1 to 3 treatments, chance of success greater than 90%. And this has more than 90% savings of your R&D and innovation spend. And once we do that, once we generate more data, then holistically we can become sharper and even more faster going in future. But there are standards in terms of subject matter experts. There are professors who are in this area, known for last 30, 40 years. Our own team, our PhDs and postdocs who have experience in this area. So collectively, that ecosystem by itself, when you publish your models in International Association for Food Protection Conference, Food Micro Conference, ICOMS, etc., that is the testament of your scientific excellence. And last year, just as an example, Carry Food Protection published more than 85 scientific webinars, posters, talks, etc., at all the leading global food safety and food science conferences in conjunction with leading academic researchers and leading regulatory bodies like USDA, FDA. And that is a testament on our scientific excellence. No one is able to do those scientific publications on a global level, ICOMS, IFP, RMC, IFT, IAFP, Lactic Acid Bacteria Conference, etc. And that shows the power of our science that we do. And our researchers, they are all from the leading universities, all our scientists, and they are themselves subject matter experts. So that is kind of an independent scientific thought leadership that is being referenced in that question that we have to achieve to be able to say, yes, our science is recognized in our peers.
Gotcha. Now, moving on from that recognized scientific expertise in pet food preservation, let's move on from keeping pet food fresh to keeping pet feeling fresh throughout their lives. Health and wellness are another very important trend in pet food. What are some of the biggest challenges that manufacturers face when they're formulating a new product, trying to meet those health and wellness demands?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. We, as you know, Kerry, we deal B2B with ingredients for health and wellness. So, key aspects when we work with customers on new ingredients is that it doesn't have any influence, I suppose, as Saurabh said earlier, on palatability. You can have the most healthy, nutritious food in the world, but if the pet won't eat it, it's useless. All the ingredients we work with, from a health and wellness perspective, have zero to little influence on taste or sensory. Sourcing is another key aspect. It's in terms of we look to provide ingredients that we have manufacture of, that we're able to control our pricing on, but also that they meet the regulations for the countries that they're in. And as Saurabh mentioned, we have a heavy regulatory presence which looks at a lot of our health and wellness ingredients. And we are investing very heavily in clinicals on our health and wellness ingredients, clinicals, so that when our customers are using them for health and wellness, to call out something like digestive health, that they are scientifically backed, that they're clinically proven to work in the dog or in the cat. We've over 12 studies ongoing in dogs and cats with our health and wellness ingredients as I speak. But also it's important with those health and wellness ingredients is the proving of safety. So as part of all those clinical safety has been proven, there's no negative health effects on the animals when they take them, and that's very much key of it. And lastly is consistency. Ingredients need to be consistent, how we manufacture them, but what's key is when they're being used in a kibble or a treat, that they're there at consistent doses, that they survive the stability of the product, be it a dry kibble or a treat, semi-moist treat. And a big thing Kerry does to help support that is all the ingredients we sell, we're able to test for a lot of them in application to prove that they are there after production and at shelf life. For this particularly important, we see with the biotics going forward, like posts and probiotics, where there is a healthy connotation with them. They need to be there at the right clinical doses. But if someone picks some off the shelf 6 months after it's manufactured, is that probiotic there at that clinical dose at that time? And those are challenges that go to manufacturers when they get these ingredients in. And very much it's part of our strategy to help support that, particularly for new product launches and product life cycle management.
So within some of those new launches and things like that, customers are always looking at the ingredient deck. Could you share some of your thoughts about which specific ingredients are they're going to view more positively, negatively, conversely, within the pet food market today?
Yeah, I think from a positive, customers like to see fortification with vitamins. They like to see fortification with probiotics. They like to see prebiotics in the product. Omegas, key for brain development, but also for maintaining brain health and skin health. Customers also like to see natural ingredients mirroring the food side. So as Rob was mentioning, being able to put in natural preservatives versus artificial, but as well, on the negative side, they don't want to see artificial ingredients. They don't want to see artificial colors, meal enhancers or fillers from soy, from wheat. They have their negative connotation, I think, as well with customers, as well as stuff like MSG, anything that's really, I suppose, it mirrors what we like to see in products now, that the shift to natural, what's in the kitchen, what's at home. I think that's come into pet as well. And if anything has a very chemical sounding name, it will attract the customer's attention. That's really, I think, as we said, it's the humanization. It's coming through on label reading also.
Gotcha. So you've mentioned a little bit about some of the claims that can go along with those ingredients. Could you tell us a little bit more about some of the top ingredient claims that pet owners are looking for now in products or in the near future?
Yeah, I mean, it's back to humanization, healthy aging, being proactive on health, and basically looking after yourself. They want to bring that to your dogs, to their cats. Digestive health is probably still the big claim we see mostly used a lot. It's on a lot of foods and treats using probiotics. We're seeing postbiotics are coming to the fore now. I think there's still a lot of education to be done with consumers and what postbiotics actually do and how they work, but there is a positive connotation with seeing these on the label. Immune health is another one that this is a legacy from the pandemic, but immune health is as important to us as it is for our dogs or our cats, particularly now with a lot of people post-pandemic have dogs that are going into daycares. They're bringing them to the parks, or they're going into kennels for long periods of time. It's important that they have a strong immune system. Otherwise, they could get coughs, colds, and pick up other various illnesses. Skin and coat, another key thing. Specifically, you see with some certain breeds, skin and coats can be an issue. But it's very noticeable to pet parents when the dogs are scratching, they're pulling off their hair, scratching at their ears. Any ingredients from a supplement perspective, which can help alleviate that and bringing some new science to the table, I think is of interest. And then back to healthy aging, joint health is another key thing. I think that's looked at, maintaining joint health throughout life or in later life as the dog or cat gets older. Again, it's noticeable. Slowing down in movements, not able to get the couch or into the car, But, that's all part of healthy aging. That's when people start noticing their pets are aging. And, anything that can push that down the road and keep them healthier for longer, I think is a health benefit that consumers want.
Gotcha. So some of those marketing claims that customers are looking for, aging, healthy aging, digestive support, immune support, skin and coat, how can ingredients help to meet those concerns?
I think there are ingredients out there which have been scientifically proven when given at the right dietary amounts consistently throughout the dog's or cat's life can help with certain ailments. From a digestive health perspective, we've seen certain probiotics can really affect the microbiome positively, can affect stool health. We've seen that with some of our own probiotics, and we see it with other probiotics in literature. Microbiome health, I think, is starting to be really figured out for dogs. I think there's a journey still with cats, but microbiome health can also affect other areas like kidney health. It can affect skin and coat health. 90% of the pet's immune system, similar to humans, is in the microbiome. So you can really affect stuff like skin and coat, inflammation. It can also affect the immune system very significantly. You see some ingredients for immune health out there, which can really help to boost immune systems. Typically, you see vitamin D out there, you see vitamin C, but also, beta glucans, particularly if they're the right purity, can have a significant effect on pet health in terms of preventing illnesses or boosting their immune system. You see with omegas for brain development, particularly from puppy on, and then for later life, the presence of these in foods is key to maintaining that, and also through the healthy part of life for skin and coat. So I think it's bringing the science we've seen on the human side, that supplements, ingredients we know work for humans, but proving they work on the pet side, and Kerry is doing that with our clinicals. But then as I said, it's key is ensuring consistency in the products and that the clinically effective doses are there.
Gotcha. You pretty much answered my next question about functional ingredients. Let's look a little bit at what might be coming along in the future. This being kind of the topic of the episode today. Do you have any predictions about what ingredients may be trending in the future of pet foods?
Yeah, I think I mentioned earlier, I think any ingredients for containing postbiotics are very much trending. And the reason these are trending is there's potentially an ease of use in terms they can be applied to wet foods, to dried foods. They can be applied to pre-extrusion, which is important in kibble. It's an ease of use for manufacturers, but they can answer potentially other health benefits than just digestion or microbiome. We see postbiotics out there in the market, which can have a significant impact on skin health, on immune health, but also can have an effect on cognitive health, kidney health. So there's lots of new, basically, connotations with these microorganisms. The challenge I see is they are dead microorganisms. So you can put them in, but I think you need to be able to prove they're there and that they're surviving processing and they're stable in the products. I think it's potentially much easier to do that with a probiotic or to measure other measurable ingredients than with postbiotics. But I think those are an area of very much a focus we see, of our customers see, and they bring also a regulatory benefit in terms of, I think they're easier to get approved, particularly in areas like Europe, which has been a major challenge for some functional ingredients at this point in time. So it would allow manufacturers to use ingredients that geographically they could send to other, particularly if they're a global business, they can sell geographically. And I think that's why we're getting a lot of traction. But as I mentioned, there is still a good bit of work to be done in terms of proving clinicals in them, but then proving shelf life stability and proving, because then they're old. Again, if someone takes it off the shelf, you don't have the class action lawsuit that they can't find your postbiotic in the product. And that's very much something I think is going to start happening in pet over the next 4 to 5 years, mirroring what we're seeing in food and beverage.
Well, your response there just leads perfectly into our first question from the audience, which is also about biotics. As we go into these questions from the audience, the first one we have here is asking if you think prebiotics are important for pet food nutrition moving forward. And they ask specifically about oligosaccharides.
Yeah, I think they are. We see oligosaccharides on the food sides, particularly, in infant formulas. They, I think, can be very important potentially in the young puppy to young dog diets and potentially young kitten diets, particularly being adding to milks or into therapeutic feeds. Prebiotics, I think, are very important because they can have a major impact on the microbiome much faster than probiotics. So I think the right prebiotics and fibers are key in diets in general. I do think that a lot of the prebiotics we are putting in are from the human diets, and I question how beneficial they can be for dogs or cats. And, I'd like to see, more complex fibers being used. We see a lot of inulin out there, beet pulp. It's not, it's around for a long time, but anyone who has a dog and you swap them to diets with different prebiotics will notice a very unpleasant effect very quickly. You have to wonder, how good they are. I think if they are getting prebiotics, you need to ensure they're getting the same ones consistently, at least to ease any issues from gastrointestinal aspect. But they are key, and I think, in maintaining the microbiome of the pet.
Gotcha. And so this is kind of a question that comes up a lot of times, and it's always good to review it. Could you just give us a real quick overview of the difference between prebiotics, postbiotics, and like the difference between the different types of biotics?
Yeah, prebiotics are really their nutrients are based generally on saccharides or longer sugars. They pass through when taken, they pass through your actual digestive system. They're not digested by the host. They're digested by the bacteria in your gut. And basically they're basically food for your gut bacteria, would be the simplest way I could put it from a layman's terms. When you give these, you can influence various clades of the microbiomes. Specific bacteria will grow better on specific prebiotics. So you can see with FOS, with MOS, GOS, with inulin, pectin, with beet pulp, different effects on the microbiome. So that's really where you see a lot of them in pet food. Probiotics, they're defined as a single microorganism that's live when given in adequate amounts. And that's the point I like to dwell on, adequate amounts. Regularly can confer a health benefit on the host. And then postbiotics, they're the newest area, but these are basically considered as whole or dead microorganisms or parts of dead microorganisms and potentially some metabolites of dead microorganisms, which again, when given in adequate amounts regularly, can confer a health benefit on the host. Like a key call out with postbiotics, it's certain parts of it that are produced aren't considered postbiotics. So if a microorganism produces enzymes, or for example, acids, acetic acids, or butyric acids, these aren't considered postbiotics. It's the whole organism or parts of the organisms, particularly proteins, which can bring the effect. So there's a bit of a gray area still, but that, I think, in a nutshell, is how the three are defined. The last one you'll hear a bit about is symbiotic, and this is really when you're mixing a prebiotic and a probiotic together to bring a health benefit to a host.
Gotcha. And I guess we've got a question here asking about how to improve the heat stability of antioxidants. And while we're on that topic, if you could also maybe touch on heat stability of the different types of biotics. I know that perhaps postbiotics might perhaps be a little bit more resistant to heat.
Yeah, I mean, I think it all has to be defined. So technically, if you put a dead microorganism in, it's already been exposed to heat, but is the functional active or the functional part of that microorganism still there and bringing the health benefit? An example is beta-glucans. There's parts of the beta-glucans that we know that are there, but they're defined as postbiotics, but we know are part of the immune system and can affect the immune system. For probiotics, again, probiotics are sensitive to heat. That's why they're generally added at different parts of the process. So generally in a kibble manufacturing, they're added post-extrusion along with the palatants in a lot of cases. You can add them pre-extrusion, but this generally is if they're spores, if they're spore-based probiotic. Vegetative probiotics won't survive extrusion. You can add them post-extrusion, but the shelf life and their stability is very much affected over time, particularly in dry foods. And it's hard to maintain a stability there, would be my answer on that from a heat perspective.
Gotcha. How about the heat stability of antioxidants? How can that be improved?
Yes. So for that one, it is depends on which antioxidant you are using, which process you are using, whether you are talking about extrusion, whether you're talking about drying, etc., and which antioxidant and ingredients you have. So we do have very deep knowledge on this one, which will be based on your formulation, product, and process specificity, and what kind of stability we are looking for. So that needs a thermal kinetics of your active metabolites or those natural antioxidants. So we do have those available, and we can engage on those specificity because there's not a general answer. Sometimes we are able to incorporate an ingredient which provides protection to a certain process. Sometimes we have to optimize the process. Sometimes we have to change the formulation, and sometimes we just have to replace a natural antimicrobial with a more stable antimicrobial. So it is very much project specific too.
Gotcha. So it looks like we have time for one more question as we're coming a little bit over the time here. But there's one more question here about if there's any future innovations that might allow a company to create a pet food that would include a natural ingredient that acts as a repellent for fleas and ticks. Are you guys aware of any?
Yes. So Kerry has worked with Kansas State University on this very specific topic for a doctoral student. We do have a very specific product in our smoke technology division in our food protection called Everwild S100 and other ingredients that we have. And that has been published in scientific research for this specific functionality. So yes, as an ingredient incorporating ours, the research from Kansas State University showed that it provides a lot of protection against ticks and fleas.
Excellent. So it looks like we've answered all of our questions. And we are now out of time. We're a little bit over 11 here. So thank you for staying a minute or so extra. Do either of you guys have some extra or some final thoughts that you'd like to share with us?
No, it is a pleasure and a very, very interactive session, Tim. The audience has been very, very knowledge rich, and the questions were extremely rich. So it really fits to our strategy, and we are looking forward to serve the industry. So very, very thankful for this opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. Thanks very much for the opportunity, Tim, and look forward to seeing everyone at Pet Food Forum in a few weeks.
Yep, well, definitely I'll see you there at Pet Food Forum. I'll be there. And so thanks also to both of you guys. And, thank you very much, Saurabh and John, and thank you to our audience. We greatly appreciate your feedback on today's chat. And you should now be able to see a QR code. If you scan that QR code, you'll be able to access the survey about today's Ask the Pet Food Pro. We'll also email a survey link very soon. And to finish off, I'd like to give a great big thank you to Kerry for sponsoring this edition of Ask the Pet Food Pro. Please watch for more Ask the Pet Food Pro chats brought to you by Pet Food Industry and Pet Food Forum. I'm Tim Wall, Senior Reporter for Pet Food Industry, and I'd like to say thanks again to our sponsor, Kerry, and our guests, and a great big thanks to the Watt Global Media staff for making this all possible. And thank you to our international audience for joining us. I hope that you all enjoy the rest of your day or evening, depending on which hemisphere you call home. So until the next time on Ask the Pet Food Pro, goodbye.